A very good morning to you all. My name is Federico, and again, this is InspireTalk. Today's guest is a very special guest. He's an expert within the fundraising arena, but perhaps that's just undermining really what his potential is or what his track record of success has really been about. I'll introduce him right now, actually. Tim Conolan. How are you, Tim?
Good morning, Federico. How are you?
Absolutely brilliant on a sunny autumn morning here in Melbourne. I guess you're in Melbourne as well, in Brunswick, so we do have a lot in common, which is great.
We do.
So, look, Tim, a big thank you for your involvement in this series. It's really a delight to have someone with your caper, with your track record of success, sharing your story, I guess, to the audience across the globe. I guess for the audience, for them to really capture your story, where you've started and what you're doing today, I'll just read out, I guess, your public profile and the way you present yourself to the public. You have a proven track record of success within the realms of philanthropy, fundraising, service delivery, community support, and major fundraising campaigns, working with major donors. You are the CEO and founder of TLC for Kids, providing support for sick kids and their families in over 400 hospitals around Australia. And your services are being used 700,000 times every year during medical examinations and procedures. What's also amazing about your track record of success, Tim, is that you were awarded the Entrepreneurial of the Year award in 2014 for the social entrepreneurship category in the Southern region, which is extremely prestigious to have. And you are also the Australia Day Ambassador. So I can't even express my excitement to have you on this show and the amazing accolades. So well done is the first thing I want to say to you.
Thank you.
So I guess what made you pursue this really diverse career and extremely dynamic entrepreneurial background that you have? Tell me a little bit about yourself, Tim.
I think it started with my parents. They were always in the fashion industry. My father was in real estate, so he was the Onassis of real estate. That was actually what he's called. So he used to work for the National Trustees, and I was taught from the youngest age, work hard, have respect for a lot of people, and just do things that you enjoy. And if you're going to do something, do it well. So I started off from a very young age doing some work for my parents. They used to have clothing shops and dress shops. Then moved on to doing some gym instructing with my brother. We had a gymwear label together, so we were doing a lot of work in that area. He used to be a professional bodybuilder. Then we went into promotional work with some different companies. Then that led to doing motivational work, and that was helping street kids trying to get off drugs where possible. But that also was along the time we were doing work with high school kids to teach them how to cope with the stresses of end-of-year exams. And that led back in 1991 to working with cancer kids. So it's been a pretty varied history of work. I was also a professional DJ, so I was doing that on the side as well. So you have to fill in your time somewhere. So I did that for 13 years. And I always had a scope to try and do better. And if I saw a problem, I'd like to solve it. And back in 98, that was, I suppose, the inspiration to actually do a lot more than what I was doing and expand the program and try and help as many people as possible.
Fantastic. It's a very honourable position you have, helping children. I guess many people out there would love to do what you do, but you certainly have a particular skill, vision and attitude, which I guess define as entrepreneurial. And yes, your background you are bringing certainly comes across as being entrepreneurial in that respect. So focusing on TLC, I guess, at what point did you envisage this venture that you are now running successfully, going back from day dot?
It was, I suppose, to be perfectly honest, I wanted to encourage other charities to do more. I was doing charitable work, but it wasn't a charity as such. And then when I found out how many kids were actually missing out, because unfortunately charities had it was like, I suppose, conditional empathy, that they were helping certain children with certain illnesses in certain areas or with certain criteria, which meant that if the children didn't quite fit all the boxes, they were overlooked. And I didn't think that was right, because I've always believed if you're in a position to help somebody, you should. And it shouldn't come down to their race, religion, their attitudes, even their citizenship. If a human being needs some help, you should help them. which a lot of people, fortunately, on the planet believe the same thing. But when I found out how many kids were missing out, I decided to do something about it. My vision was to just get the other charities that had the resources and funding to open their doors just a little bit, which meant that I could go back to doing my DJing work or something. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case. And then the charity started referring kids to us, which meant that we had a service that was very unique in the non-profit realm, and it was very needed. And that's when it started growing and expanding from there.
That's great. Look, I often hear about serial entrepreneurs mentioning the word collaboration, and what you're talking about here is collaboration with other stakeholders. What I'm also hearing, though, is your empathy for other people, and I think that's quite uncommon nowadays in the world of business, but certainly in your industry, I think it's key to your success. Because at the end of the day, it comes down to having that love and that care for those clients or those people that you look after or try to look after with the support of other organisations. So again, it's very honourable. I guess looking at your initial inspiration to focus on fundraising per se, and I guess fundraising is an element to this particular series of the Game Changers, and I guess I'd like to really pick your brain about the relevance, the importance of fundraising, and how it sort of fits into your business model with regards to TLC.
Yeah, sure. It's actually, fundraising is critical. And the only way we can do what we do is if we have successful fundraising. Over the last 19 years, we've raised just over $13.8 million, which I think it always puts a smile on my face to think so many people have made that choice to put their hand in their pocket. And they work very hard for their money. But they put their hand in their pocket and decided to give, to help a child they'll never meet, they'll never know, but they've trusted us with their money. And I think the biggest challenge we've had with the fundraising side, even though it has been quite successful, is the competition with other charities. And that's something I'm glad you touched on that before with the collaboration, because really it should be a co-opetition scenario for charities. If we're all working for the same purpose, the same cause to fix a need and to help people, it should be working side by side with each other, not against each other. And I think with the fundraising element, there's a lot of things to take into account where people will become passionate about a certain cause or a certain reason why they're doing something, not to mention the crowdfunding campaigns that are going on for people that want to go on a holiday or do some renovations or support a cause. So it's a pretty busy sector. In Australia alone, I know it was $135 billion that was raised in the non-profit sector, and out of that was obviously there's quite a large amount that was raised just purely donations, but that's including fundraising campaigns, awareness campaigns, government funding as well, trusts and grants. But the fundraising element I think it's just a constant challenge to work out how do you, I suppose, get that bandwidth. And that's why I think it's a great opportunity that you provided, and what you're doing is exceptional because you're giving a bit of a voice to shine a light on some of the challenges of fundraising, but also people might not be aware of what we're doing, but also what they could actually contribute back to.
Sure. Look, it's really interesting that you talk about the challenge, and with every business venture there is a challenge, but particularly for you, seeking the financial support of people is certainly a challenge. I know that myself in business, but really when it comes down to the crux, what is that key thing that people refer to when it comes to deciding to give money away? What is that thing? Is there a word that comes to your mind? Is there a thought? Is there a philosophy about people wanting to give money away for this cause?
Absolutely, it's impact. To sum it all up in one single word, it's impact. The value of the impact, the purpose, the focus, everything you're doing, the vision, the work, the services, everything comes down to one simple thing. It's the impact that's being provided and the difference it's making. So I think measuring impact is a critical part of any service that's being provided. And I'm talking services that might be environmental, animal welfare, human services, whatever it is, there's an element, there's an end product, and that end product should have a value on the impact that it's having. So, and then the flip side of that is to work out, well, how much money do you need to raise to have one single impact and positive impact?
Fantastic. So I guess I'd like to sort of extrapolate that word impact. I think it's also about care for others, love for others, And like you've said before, having the empathy, the genuine empathy as a business leader, as a visionary that you are, you've got to have that humble side to your story, and I guess you've got to mean it. You can't just just talk about it. You've actually got to act on it as well, and I can certainly see that from your track record of success. So, with regards to other challenges, what are some of the common challenges that you've faced? I guess going back to the earlier startup years to where you are now, and I guess this point here is particularly useful for a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs that are looking at establishing whatever type of business, perhaps in your type of industry. So, what comes to mind?
I think the biggest thing is keeping true to the vision, and having that stamina, and don't be misled or taken away from what you decided to do with your life, or the passion that you have. A lot of people, unfortunately, might take the easy way out, or compromise their integrity. And I think being an entrepreneur and serial entrepreneur, always staying true to my integrity. And I think it's something that any value. I love the saying, you're the sum of 5 people in your life. And I've always thought, well, I always believe in integrity, and anybody that I associate myself with or work with, you've got to have integrity. And if you stay committed to why you're doing it, even though there's some very tough times that you may face, at the end of the day, it's the journey. It's not the destination, it's always the journey. But just staying true to it, and that's the best advice I can ever give, because we've gone through very difficult financial times. I actually funded TLC for Kids for the first 2 years with my DJing work, working 4 nights a week.
Yes.
Focus was, well, no, we'll get there. The fundraising will start to work. People will start listening and taking it seriously, what we were doing. And then it sort of flipped when more people heard about the reason why we're doing it. And I suppose what I stand by, what I'm proudest of, when I set up TLC for Kids, which I did with my partner, Anna Darris, the mission statement was, we help put smiles back on sick kids' faces. And today, 19 years later, our mission statement is, we help put smiles back on sick kids' faces. So that has not changed. Not even a single word has changed in our original mission, because we've stayed focused on keeping true to it. And that's been the biggest thing that I've done and learned how to actually succeed.
Fantastic. That's great. Look, you're certainly giving me the recipe to your success, and a lot of what you're saying is highly relevant to any other story or journey or mission as such, for any business person. So it's great. I guess focusing now on the subject of game changers, and I guess that's the theme or the key topic of this particular interview as well. What is your definition to a game changer? Why is it important to disrupt? And I guess, why is it important to go against the grain of what most people wouldn't tend to do? So what's your philosophy to that?
I think swimming against the current. I've always loved being considered as a salmon, because if everybody took the easy way out, then not a lot will get done. And it's very easy to get lost in bureaucracy or red tape, or even some quick decision making when it goes to different levels of hierarchy in organisations. I think to disrupt the services, but in a positive way, and causing change. And I suppose going back to the original reason why I started TLC for Kids was the focus of disruption. I wanted change in what I saw was, it was a very successful and very positive sector, but I thought they could be doing a little bit more. So by disrupting a little bit, not a major disruption, that can cause positive change. So it's,
sure.
I think that's a good way to do it.
Look, I like your analogy of the salmon going upstream, but the truth is that when you get to the final destination or along the way, there are sharks, and in this case, there are those bears waiting for that fish to jump out of the water. So I guess when you disrupt, and I know this person myself, there are the skeptics out there. There are those that are trying to steal your idea. There are those that are trying to push you back, put up the barriers, etc., etc. So with all those challenges, I guess, what is the key thing for you to be able to overcome those challenges when it comes to disrupting and going against the grain? Because, hey, it's not easy, is it?
Oh, no, it's not easy at all. But I think that's, if you can turn the challenge into a bit of fun. And I suppose at the end of the day, if you look at, well, if you've achieved something, or if you've been able to pass the bear, which actually I like that analogy too. If you pass the bear, then you've won. So, and you enjoy each day. You have to reward yourself and enjoy the little wins, because you can't just focus on, well, one day, if then, we will eventually. It's going to take too long to get there. So if you have one single win, if you pass one bear, pat yourself on the back, pick yourself up, and learn. If a bear has unfortunately caught you a couple of times, learn from those mistakes. But setting up the foundations, I think that's probably the key thing to success that I believe. Have the strongest foundations you can. And if that means taking a lot longer to actually reach the goal or the destination, ensure that you've got, you know, a full concrete-based foundation,
yep,
which stands and goes in line with your integrity and your original mission and your vision. So I think
how long does it take to create the foundations? Because when you build a house, foundations can take, say, 6 months. But when you're building a business, how long is a piece of string?
Well, I love that saying. It's always twice as long as half its length. That's the piece of string. So I've always had the silver lining attitude. Nothing's impossible. Everything can be achieved. And I think with the vision and mission, even for the foundations, you don't really know. And even now, we're still finding little areas that we think, you know what, we can repair that, or we can make that even stronger, because there's new technologies, there's new disruption going on in the marketplace, there's new ways to fundraise, there's new opportunities for even global reach. So we look at these areas, look at the opportunities. Well, now we have to change the foundations just a little bit to add even more stability to it, just in case something doesn't work down the track. You're only coming back to a short period, not going back to day one. And I think that's the biggest lesson I have learned with all of this, is make sure that the foundation, regardless of how long it takes, that's what you build, and you just build one floor at a time.
So I'm sure there are listeners out there, especially the young generation, that is saying, well, look, I don't have, you know, all my life to build a business. I want success now. And typically that success for them is going to happen overnight or within a year or two. But if you had to put a figure on building a foundation for any type of business, how many years are we talking about?
Well, I suppose I'll put it into perspective for TLC. That took 3 months for me to find the right people to talk to and establish a board of directors, go through the process of all the paperwork, legal advice and legal requirements to actually set the organisation up. And because I didn't want to rush into it. And I think that was the important part, because even though I found out what was missing in the non-profit sector, there was no point starting something, then the next day doing a whole lot of things without research. So I think the research side will help indicate how long it's going to take to set up the right foundations.
Yep.
And always look for advice from people, be it good or bad. Take the advice and take it with a pinch of salt. And
yep,
I think the key thing is not taking anything personally. If you're trying to set up something which is a service provision or even a business, don't take it personally if somebody doesn't like your product, because the old adage, you know, you can please some of the people some of the time, some of the people all the time, but you'll never be able to please all the people all the time. So that's a great one to live by.
Of course, and you can certainly learn a lot from, you know, those stuff ups or those setbacks or those failures. So it's key to learn from hindsight. So great advice there, Tim. What traits essentially do you need to be a game changer? Like, if you had to think of the top 3 traits, maybe your traits, what are they?
Having integrity, having passion, and I think morals. Obviously, in the work that I'm doing, empathy is a key part of what we're doing. But if you have pretty strong morals and you know what is right, then very few things that you do end up being wrong. Other people might have different morals, and that might increase the challenges that you have. But I think if you stand by your morals, that should be the person you are, and that will be the person who gains respect from other people. And if you show that you've got integrity, then I suppose, if anything, you've earned the right to have a conversation with people instead of trying to do what you can do to get around people or do the wrong thing. So they will be the 3 top, and plus empathy.
Fantastic. Awesome. I'm taking a lot of notes here, Tim. I'm running out of paper. Moving on to competition, or how to best compete in your industry. Now, I know you've mentioned before, or you've used the word co-opetition. Is that sort of what you've said before, which is really about collaboration and competition brought together? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Focusing on that term competition, I guess, if we had to look at 3 areas of a business, typically forming strategic partnerships, having sufficient venture capital, and being an influential leader that you are, which of those three would you place your bets on as being the most critical? And don't say all three, because that's typically the answer I get. But if there was one that you had to really bet on, what would it be?
I think it'd be being an influential leader, like standing by, as I was saying before, your morals and your integrity. But if you can prove that you're a leader for the right reasons, that it's not for just personal gain, it's something you actually honestly believe in, that's what I think will be the starting point. It's been interesting though, along this journey, securing venture capital and I suppose the growth of the organisation. It has always come down to a who you know scenario. So, and not everybody's going to know the right people to talk to about putting their hands in their pockets or finding an amazing benefactor or even a backer. And there's a lot of resources that we can go to get business loans and grants and opportunities for people, especially for startups. So that opportunity is there. But I think if you can become an influential leader, the rest will follow naturally. So that would be, if I could put my money on it, I'd say go for leadership first.
Great. And are there any leaders out there that you aspire towards and think, wow, they're great examples of what I'd like to be one day myself?
Well, I think you look at the likes of Richard Branson, which I know a lot of people would say, well, that's an obvious choice, but he's passionate. And he started as an influential leader. He wanted to do something, got up and did it. So I think people like that, and any of the big game changers in the world, if you look at their history, they were great influential leaders from the get-go because they just had that vision.
Yep. Great. Look, thanks for that tip there. And would you say venture capital is overrated? Like a lot of business owners or startups think, unless I have X amount of money, it's going to be hard to grow this business. Or is it possible to grow a successful venture, I guess, with the right support of people and being very visionary and very confident and passionate? Is it possible to create a successful venture with limited cash?
100%. It's don't even question or hesitate the answer, because I've been able to do it with nothing. So you just find a way, and if it's truly something that you want to do, you'll always find a way how to do it.
Great. So I guess if I had to put those three areas in order, leadership would be number one, forming strategic partnerships number two, and venture capital would be number three.
Yes.
So interesting. So thanks for that, Tim. So I guess as an entrepreneur, to succeed in the industry, how important is talent? Because talent is something that often gets promoted on TV, like those TV shows, The Voice, and so forth. And it's all about talent. If you don't have that voice, you can't be successful. So, as a business leader, as an entrepreneur, how important is talent?
I think there's different levels of talent. You can be a great juggler, and I think actually I have learned how to juggle. But putting that into perspective, I've had to learn how to juggle, the balls, but also it's the juggling partnerships, but juggling personalities of people. So I think there are certain talents you can learn how to cope with people. Talent can be taught, and again, it's through hard work and dedication, but anybody can learn a skill. So I think the talent side doesn't necessarily have to be a natural talent. If there's something that you've recognised in yourself that you need to be a better leader or a better communicator or a better time manager, these are things and talents that you can actually learn and upskill yourself. So I don't think it's critical to start with great talents, because it can be taught and can be learned. But I think having the drive to want to learn, and I don't really know if that's even a talent, but I think that would be probably something I would focus on. So I don't think it's a critical part of it, because it can be taught. Sure.
So I guess having the skills and the traits to be able to manage the pressures of a business and so forth are key. And what about education? How does education sit in your horizon or perhaps level of priority?
Again, I think to start an organisation, going back to research, and what's fantastic now, because when I started TLC for Kids, the resources were few and far between. So back in 1998, I didn't have the luxury of being able to contact with absolutely anybody who wanted to in the world, and I had very limited resources. But the education side of it, now there's amazing writers, books. Books. I suppose it's endless. that you can do. You can also do it, so many courses, and there's so many short courses now for people to do. So if you're not thinking, well, I can dedicate 2 years of my life to go and get an MBA before I can actually start being successful, these are things that people can do on the side. If it's night school, if they're passionate about what they want to do, or they might choose to go and get a direct degree first. But I suppose my journey has not been based on education first. It's been educating myself along the way, and it's a bit of a needs basis. The thing that I need to upskill myself about, then I'll educate myself, or go and speak with somebody who's actually got that education.
Look, it's again reaffirming what I think of entrepreneurs or successful entrepreneurs. There is a common thread, and the common thread is it really comes down to that self-belief, that passion, that stamina, versus having that formal qualification that a lot of people strive for, having the MBA. But perhaps in terms of day-to-day education, what you're saying is, enroll yourself in a workshop or do some short-term training. It's like sharpening the pencil and just making sure that you keep up to date with the trends, with the technologies, with the know-how, and what's sort of the next big thing to know about. So I totally support you on that theory, because once again, even myself, as far as education is concerned, my education is not within the business sector. In fact, it was engineering, and I can say to you that what I've achieved was largely around that vision that I had as well. So I guess I totally support your ethos around that one. So I guess talent probably overrules education. Would that be a fair conclusion to this point?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So I guess looking at the future, looking at the distant horizon, what changes would you like to see, or do you think need to occur in this world for the world to be a better place? And I guess how can you be instrumental in that?
I think that the biggest thing that's it's simplifying services, and especially the industry that I'm in. And I think that sort of any service industry that's out there, it's making it simpler. Think about customer care, customer service, because at the end of the day, we're a very intelligent species on the planet, which means that we can communicate quite easily. But I think it's getting through some of that red tape, getting through some of the bureaucracy, and just making things simpler and having a focus on, well, what's needed, identifying the problem first, and then working out ways how to solve it. And I say that the problem, that could be any business opportunity that's out there. The only reason why there are businesses and startup organisations is because there's a gap, or somebody thinks I could make this a little bit better. So I think that would be the biggest thing, just simplify things. And because, again, I suppose time is the most precious commodity we have, that we just can't stop it, we can't bottle it, we can't store it, we can't buy more of it. So I think we take them to account of the solution we're looking for, make things simpler and easier for people to access.
Yeah, sure. And if I'm sort of a listener who's an aspiring entrepreneur, once again, wanting to enter your type of market and maybe even compete with what you're doing, or maybe leverage on that next wave of opportunity, what are the initiatives or programs that you envisage or perhaps would like to see happen in the next 5 or 10 years that other individuals might want to join and jump on the same bandwagon? Like what phenomenon is occurring that you know of that is perhaps evolving and changing, bringing opportunity to other business people?
I suppose going and speaking from experience and looking at what we are hoping to achieve, and this is also getting a lot of feedback from hospital staff and medical professionals that I've been dealing with over the last 19 years with TLC for Kids, and then 26 years in total. It's a real big focus on non-pharmacological support for kids, so non-invasive support, trying to make their time better in hospital in a less scary and invasive way, because at the end of the day, trauma and stress are key things to health, no matter what we're doing, if it's in a hospital or not in a hospital. And if we can reduce, and we can do anything to reduce stress for people, obviously our focus is primarily the children, but in saying that, that actually expands to the siblings, the families, and the hospital staff. So if there's a focus on removing stress from our lives, and what's I think is fantastic at the moment, there's a lot of focus on mindfulness, even going back to meditation for people, being aware of yourself, looking after yourself, but also putting a hand out if anybody else needs a hand and asking people if they're okay. So I think if we focus on removing stress and increasing the support base for, as I was saying, non-pharmacological support for kids, then the healthcare sector would take a dramatic change from where it is today. But it also means that a lot more people, if they didn't have that fear or the unknown of going to hospitals, it would mean children probably end up getting better care, because there are families and people out there that might be scared because they're not educated about having any sort of procedure or going and seeing a doctor just for a checkup. If we take away that fear and the anxiety, maybe that could be a better place we're living in, where people would be better looked after and more confident about just asking for a little bit of help.
Great. And I think if I can add my 2 cents worth to what you're saying, I guess instead of relying on the system to find solutions to everything, or maybe using traditional medical practice, I think it's really also about, or more importantly, about developing quality relationships, providing the necessary support, and actually encouraging children to interact rather than relying on, say, pharmaceuticals to fix the problem. So I think that that vision that you have and that philosophy is very powerful, and certainly one that I would like to see change in the society that we're in. And obviously what you're doing is very honourable, and I hope that you are definitely correct in your assumption of the future. So it's great to hear that from you, Tim. I guess to wrap up today, I want you to maybe think of your top quote or your philosophy to life. And as you're thinking that, I'd like to just summarise some of the key things that you've mentioned, or perhaps the 3 or 4 or 5 key words that you keep referring to as, I guess, your philosophy to life or your recipe to success. And they include the word passion. It seems to emerge quite a lot. Impact, integrity, morals, and essentially building real relationships. So that's something I could certainly put up on the wall myself and refer to every day, and it's great encouragement. So, Tim, fire away. What's your quote of the day?
My quote, and I live by this every day, it's: a waterfall starts with a single drop of water. That was from Bryce Courtenay in the book from the Power of One. And the premise behind it is, well, you can do anything and anything is achievable, but just think, well, if you see a gigantic waterfall, it didn't just happen. One single drop of water had to start that waterfall. And that's how I look at anything I put my mind to, anything we're doing. So it's another drop. So this is, this interview today, this opportunity to talk about TLC for Kids, about what I'm doing, or even encouraging other people to do something. Well, that's another drop of water. So that's how I live by that quote all the time. A waterfall starts with a single drop of water.
I love it. And throw in the salmon in that as well, and you've got the perfect equation.
Very
That's
good.
awesome, Tim. So I guess just to finish up, how can people get hold of you? So if they wanted to learn more about TLC, what's the website, and what's the offer, or perhaps what happens next? Absolutely, thank you. It's www, which I know people are saying you don't need them anymore, but I like it. It's paying respect. tlcforkids.org.au, and be very happy to talk to anybody that's either interested in looking for a partnership with a charity, or even a bit of mentoring work as well, which I do a fair bit of that on the side. But I think the most important thing is this co-opetition and collaboration, and working together with causes, and making the world a better place. So that's what our vision is, and we welcome that from anybody that's in the same line of thought. I love it. Make the world a better place. And I'll end it there, Tim. So thanks again for your time. Stay online as I end the transmission. So just bear with me. Thank you. Thank you very much, Federico.